Good looking bunch of people here, and it is 10 o'clock, and that makes it Lancaster Woodturners Weekly Coffee Hour number 183. And this is January the 4th, 2024. So Happy New Year, everybody. I hope you all had a fabulous holiday with your friends and family and got some time in the shop even, which I did not, so I don't have anything to show you today. I'm hoping there's a bunch of people who have some things that they would like to show, but let's see. I don't even have any early chat to offer you, so I don't have a question of the day this week. So you're on your own. What are we going to talk about today? Who's got a hand up? Oh, I do have an announcement though. The next club meeting or the next open shop is a week from Saturday. That is the 13th, I think. Am I right? I never know the dates. It is the 13th. It's the next Lancaster open shop. And this is the month for Lancaster members to choose pictures of the work you'd like to display in the Amtrak cases. We're going to start putting that thing together. And since I've given up being club treasurer, I now have the time and mental resources to chase you down and get your pictures. So later on in the month, I'm going to be doing that. Tomorrow, I hand over all of the books and the accounts to Rick Atkins, who's going to be the treasurer, and he'll be in charge of harassing you for dues from now on. So you won't be hearing from me about that, but I will be chasing down your photographs, and after that, your pieces, because we're going to put on a very good display. The club there's so much great work out there in this club. We want to bring a whole lot of it together and show anybody who cares what a good wood turning club can do. Anybody got any questions or comments about any of that?
John, I assume you're going to put some real good contact information, because I suspect we'll see a lot of people join even this conversation in addition to the club.
Well, we just actually we went yesterday. We signed off on one of those 4x9 cards like you get at tourist stops that tell you about local attractions. We did a little two-sided card about the club. We printed 100 quick print, so we have some for the farm show, and we got 1,000 coming next week from a regular printer. So we got a generic little brochure that has one of those QR codes on it. So all you got to do is scan that. You wind up on the website. We used one of your pictures, Mike, as it turned out. Anyway, so we're trying to get those sorts of things cleaned up and put in place so the club has the kind of promotional materials we need, and people can find us and all that stuff. And I also noticed, and I'll be making this pitch to the incoming executive, we have a lot of new members who are even shopping for lathes and beginning to turn, and we do not yet offer coherent classes. I think we need to get that taken care of and figure out a way that we can actually give people a good introductory lesson, a day-long class that they're going to need, how to sharpen, how to mount a bowl, how to turn a spindle, get them a good start. So that's going to be, I think, a project the club needs to tackle in the new year. I think maybe we can learn a bunch from what you guys up in Nittany Valley are doing. I understand you're doing a lot of teaching. I think it's very helpful. If there's anybody on screen who hasn't renewed for 2024 and would like to, I'm still the treasurer for another day or two. But so whatever, if you fire money into me, I'll get it onto the new guy. $30 annual dues, Lancaster Club, get you into everything. And you can PayPal it to me to my regular email, my name without a Y, JOHNKELSE at gmail.com. That'll land fine from PayPal. Or cash on the 13th. That's my last chance to be collecting. By the February meeting, if you haven't renewed, you get dropped from the rolls. But you'll hear from me or Rick Adkins or both of us before then. Any questions or comments about that? Very big screen today. I see 51 on screen. That's a lot. I can see 49 at a time. So, and there's, what do we got? A couple of blank screens on the second screen. Yeah. Okay.
So John, you might provide Rick Atkins' email or his home address, since he'll be treasurer by the time any check would arrive.
I'll send that out in an email rather than trying to put it on here.
Okay.
Send that in an email later today, so that as a last act to give you all a last chance to give you the new guys' info. I'll send that out to anybody who is a 2023 club member and hasn't renewed for 24. And also, anybody who wants help with photography, we don't need great photos for this Amtrak thing. We can use phone photos, but if anybody's completely stymied by the problem of getting a picture, drop me a note and we'll figure out a way to help you out. I'm hoping you're home this afternoon, Barry. I'm going to drop over with those brochures, the quick print ones. Barry?
Yep.
You're
Yes.
around? You're home this afternoon?
Yes, I will be.
Okay, I'll drop by around 2 or 2:30 somewhere this afternoon.
Okay.
Okay, I'm going to go to the hands that are up. Ray Simmons.
Thanks, John. I just wanted to piggyback something. I didn't get a chance when we talked about vacuum systems in the shop. Somebody brought up the spiral metal setup that they had. Penn State used to have that, and they also had a program on their website where you could do the computations for what you needed, how you needed to pipe your shop, and it just takes a little bit of time. It's not there now, I don't think, but it's out on the internet. You can find it. If you're not doing that, we talked about it. A lot of guys are just running hoses or whatever they're doing, and what they end up doing is with a dust collection system, they're extremely upset with it because they're choking the dust collector, and for a couple bucks more, you go to a bigger pipe, and there is a process. I want to bring up just an incident. I forgot about this, and I was talking to my wife. I think Jim Bowman was talking about a power cap, and I looked at that to see what it was, and it brought to mind that a lot of times we talk about dust collection, and I've heard guys say, "Oh, well, I got this. Dust collector isn't good enough. I got this, and that's all I need." I had an incident happen to me many years ago, which I forgot about until you mentioned that. I went into a shop. I lived out in the country. It was an old workshop, and we used to go down there and visit. Was a place to go, and it had a sliding door, and I slid the door open and stepped in. And when I looked over near the window, there was a guy was in there that was working in the shop, and a lot of sawdust in the air. I mean, you could see a cloud, but because a window was there and light was in, that ignited when I come through the door, and the blast knocked him down, and then I didn't get knocked down, but the rush of air went over me. And it was like, wow, what an eye opener. And it was one of these things like, holy mackerel, if that was in, he could have gone down, hit his head, or anything could have happened, or could have blown the windows out. Years later, talking about that, a guy explained to me that did a lot of liquid and air stuff. Said what people don't realize, and especially because we're talking about woodworking, is that if you have a wood shop like we all have, and I've been in some of them where you go in there and there's a layer of dust everywhere. And the guy said to me, he said that he investigated some of this stuff. He was a fluids guy. And he says, what happens in a wood shop? Last week, somebody said, oh, the vacuum, always saying the vacuum. The guy said, what people don't look at, that they'll be working in the shop, get dust, ignite the dust. That's a primary explosion. That dust blows that other stuff up that's laying around the shop and creates a secondary explosion. So you end up pretty well fried if you're still upright, and it does a lot of damage. But because I saw that actually happen, it was like, wow. And it reminded me that when, we say guys work in their shop, they don't open a window, it's supposed to be vented, a lot of things that they don't do, we're like one spark away from being history. So I had some pictures of that metal pipe. I sent it over and I couldn't find it again. I'll find that for another time. But I just wanted to bring that up because I think sometimes we just say, well, it didn't happen to me. But I think all of us, anybody has a barbecue grill, has lit the barbecue grill, and there's been like, oh, gee, it was on a little bit too long and singed our eyebrows. And, it's like, well, whoa, that was close. But that's what happens in the shop. So I just want to throw that out for guys that we're cutting corners. you can end up losing your shop and losing your life. It's it's not it won't happen to me. It does happen. So that's just some input for that. Thanks, John.
Well, Ray, while I got you here, when you last came a couple of weeks ago, you brought some pens and you brought some tool handles that you'd made, and they were both excellent workmanship and interesting designs. And I wonder if you'd show those things here.
I don't remember. I'm sorry. Oh, sorry. I don't know what I showed. So
Well, you had a bunch of tool handles that you'd made, turning tools with really good handles.
oh, at the shop day.
Yeah, at the open shop. And you also brought a portfolio of pens. I didn't know you even made pens.
Oh yeah, I do. I used to do a lot more than I do now. I've had to slow down. I could do that one day. I'd have to go get them. I'll do that.
Okay, yeah, that would be good. Okay.
Yeah,
good to
the small handles and the bigger handles. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, you had done them in a way that I hadn't really looked at. That looked very professional and slick and pretty to me.
Yeah.
My handles look a whole lot cruder than yours. So,
Yeah, I'll do that.
okay, thanks, Ray. It's always good to hear from Ray. Ray is the guy who founded our club back in 2009, and it's always good to hear from him. Mike Peace, what do you got? I think you're muted.
I've been making. I made a Dutch chuck and modified it with a little strip of metal based on Don Smith's suggestion, which was a good one. And here's whoa. Oh well. Here's one of them. One of the pendants I made. I'm making a pendant video, and if I'm successful at sharing a screen, I'll show you a bunch of them I made. Y'all see those?
Yeah, we got it.
Yeah, so I made a bunch of them for the video, and I'm not a jewelry maker. I make videos. So, but I put out a Facebook notice in my neighborhood for anybody that was a jewelry maker, and a nice lady came over for consultation, and she's going to work with me in doing a video on the back end of beads and straps and bails and fasteners and stuff like that at her jewelry maker space place. Any questions before I take the screen down?
Yeah, make sure, this is Ken, make sure you find out how they tie those knots so you can do a sliding knot.
I've done that, yeah.
Okay, I want to see that on the video.
Yeah, I think I may leave that to her. I wasn't going to get into that. I did that, I think, on my earlier video. I forget what it's called, but yeah, I found a YouTube video that showed how to do that. Yeah.
So how big are these things, Mike?
They vary from 1 3/4 inches to that great big one, a piece of burl, which is probably 2 3/4 inches. I think somewhere around 1 3/4 to 2 1/4 is probably the optimum size.
Well, did you learn? What did you learn about the Dutch chuck in doing that?
Well, I know Barry's not real big on using plywood, but plywood worked real well for me. It didn't break, and I don't think it needs to be super strong. I got the great idea from Don Smith about putting a little strip of scrap metal along the top where the top jaws bite into the wood and interfere with the sliding back and forth. And then I did put a little stop block screwed down on the top, so to center, to register the center. The challenge that I had on making these pendants is when you reverse them, how you get them centered when they don't have a little divot or anything, because you didn't want to put a divot in it. And I had a couple of techniques that aren't perfect that I'll have in the video, but that to me was the biggest challenge, was turning it round to do the back side and getting it centered when you start going back and doing the edges.
Oh, okay.
So Mike, what do you use for a finish on these?
I'm using lacquer. I don't normally use lacquer. I'm not a big C8 finish proponent, but I felt like shiny cells, so I'm using this acrylic lacquer from Chromacraft. At the last symposium I attended, I had a conversation with gosh, I forget his first name. I think it's Ron Fleming, who's quite a wood artist in color, and he was telling me that acrylic lacquer that the Chromacraft sells is the best, and he tried a lot of it. He's quite an expert, so I took his word for it, and it seems to be working very well. You know, several light coats, and I did a little bit of lacquer first on the lathe, or lacquer sanding sealer, just while I was on the lathe.
Any other questions or comments for Mike?
Yeah, Mike, on the Dux chuck, one option you might want to consider, instead of putting a piece of metal on your on the Dux chuck itself, is do like we do with our vices. When you want to put soft jaws on, just take a piece of aluminum and bend it around the jaw, and just leave it. Then you slide your wood back and forth, and you don't have to worry about the sharp edges of the chuck. So you're basically making a small aluminum soft jaw for your for the turning chuck. You can slide the board back and forth however you want.
Yeah, that's an option too.
I've done something similar, but not on a Dux chuck. But I've used plastic PVC pipe, heated it up with a heat gun, and slipped it over the jaws just on a single project, and just to get rid of the sharp points, and it worked. But I wouldn't do it like for a Dux chuck. You'd probably want something a little more secure for being able to slide it back and forth.
One of the things I learned from the diagram that John Kelsey had sent out, for Duck Bear put together, his called for, I think it was like 2 5/8 inches wide, and he was using, I believe, a one-way Talon chuck. So I cut it his size, and it was way too big, because the Record Power and the Nova chucks that I use don't have but about a 3/4 inch travel. So I discovered that his chuck, which is a bit smaller, had more travel, and it was wider. So I had to go back and cut mine down a little bit. But you don't need to have it that big. My Dux chuck was primarily for pendants, so it's only got a 1 inch hole. His called for a 1 5/8 inch hole, which called for a bigger chuck and a wider travel of jaws to accommodate that, so he could put on larger pieces to do, off center turning. But the small one worked well for me.
Mike, I have a question. You mentioned acrylic lacquer. Does acrylic lacquer have the same attacking property that, if you spray regular lacquer over an enamel, for example, it attacks it?
Yeah, I have very limited experience with it. I've sprayed it over regular lacquer. I have sprayed it over lacquer sanding sealer. I have sprayed it over Chromacraft dye that has 10% shellac in it. I don't know. Haven't had any problems. But if it attacks it right away, then I'd say the answer is no. If it will attack it a year from now, jury's still out on that one.
I was thinking of enamel, oil-based varnish, for example.
Yeah, I did not use an oil finish to begin with, but so I can't say. But I would think acrylic would. I don't know. I shouldn't say. I'd say there's a lot of people out here in our audience have got a lot more experience with finishes than I do, I'm sure.
Well,
Mike, did you have different finishes depending on the wood? Because I know some woods are a lot more oily than others in the long run, and I noticed you had some exotics in there.
Yeah, the exotics, the couple of exotics I used, I think I might have only had one of black limba. It wasn't all that oily. I know in the past where I've used, for example, something like ebony or a blackwood that might have some oil, and you use it for finial, you really don't need to put a finish on it. And as you suggested, with some of those with oils, you can have problems. But one solution to that is you wipe it down with a acetone before you put a finish on it.
For anybody around Lancaster who's interested in lacquer, I've for years used Deft brushing lacquer, and it's $30 a quart. But the Habitat Restore happens to have a whole shelf full of quarts of Deft lacquer for $3 a quart. So anybody who's into lacquer, here's your chance. I bought 2 cans. I don't know why. The quart can I bought years ago, I'm still working on. No, I'm working on my second quart can already in my life. And then I bought 2 more, so I got a 2 lifetime supply. But anyway, if you want Deft lacquer, it's a deal.
I think wipe on poly would. I didn't have any wipe on poly. I bought a can since I've made these to use for things like this. So I've got some Minwax wipe on poly that I think might work well for jewelry.
I think I'd actually use the Osmo. I'm liking Osmo for everything right now. It's working pretty good for me. Other comments from Mike? Okay.
Just a comment on your Minwax poly. I found that the Minwax is a really good brand. Some of the other polyurethane wipes on are really bad. So just because you say polyurethane, don't just go on the brand on the label. Go with the brand. But Minwax is excellent.
Minwax is a good brand. Antique oil is a good finish as well. I know that's one that Mike uses a lot.
And they're hard to find. Some of those are hard. The Minwax ones, some of them are hard to find. Ace Hardware stocks Minwax products, and because I went down there and bought a quart can of the wipe on poly and the Minwax antique oil in the red can. You can order it on Amazon, but I was shocked that it was so much cheaper at Ace Hardware. I mean, it must have been a third cheaper than ordering it off of Amazon Prime.
Lowe's stores also stock Minwax. I don't know about Home Depot.
Home Depot does not do the antique Minwax antique oil. They use Verathane or what's that other one? Watco, I think.
Lowe's does have it. Ken, go ahead.
Yeah. If I buy a lot from Ace too. And if you can't find it in your local store, if you go online, they have a lot more options, and they'll order it and just send it to the store for you.
Yeah. And then you know it's fresh.
And around here, we got some monstrous Ace Hardware stores. There's some really huge ones. So, Zimmerman's. Okay. Enough of that one. We're going to move on. Okay, Jeff Hankinson. Haven't heard from you in a bit. What are you going to show us today?
Good morning and Happy New Year to everybody. So, after a year of building and testing and all that kind of stuff, I finally got around to making more ornamented boxes. So that's a simple pattern I did. It works quite quickly, actually.
Tell us more about the pattern. How is that done?
I think this would be a simple basket weave pattern. Rich Colvin would know better than me. This is done with this one was done with a fly cutter mounted on a little 800-watt spindle. And since I computerized or I adapted a metal lathe to be able to do this kind of stuff, it actually turned something like this out very quickly, about 5 minutes.
Wow.
Which is why I've spent actually quite a long time building stuff and testing. And I didn't do the inside of the lid like the traditional guys like to do, but I just finished building a tool so I can do that finally. I can reach inside a 4-inch bowl and do the bottom if I want to.
Let's see the inside of the box.
Pretty dark in there.
Pretty dark in there, yeah.
Yeah. So
and what wood is that?
That's birch, paper birch, and a little bit of walnut for a knob on top.
Very nice.
I like that wipe on poly. That stuff is just a great finish.
Questions for Jeff? Jeff is working with a lathe that he's married up to a CNC machine, basically, if I understand that right.
No, I've got a CNC machine that I can do ornamental stuff on, and I adapted a small metal lathe with some stepper motors, so I can do it. It makes it even easier. So there's a well-known ornamental turner who's retired now, Bill Ooms in Arizona. and he wrote a fantastic program for doing this kind of stuff, and it's free. You know, he's just generously put it out there. Anybody can use it, but it's a bit of a learning curve for people. And the word computer came up, and a lot of people shrink away and, you know, melt. But it's a ton of fun.
Can I see a show of hands of people on screen who are interested in ornamental turning? I know I am. I know Ray is, and Rich Coleman. Okay, I'm seeing a half a dozen people here, more than that, who are interested in the subject. So it's a good topic. Yeah. Other comments for Jeff?
Jeff, yeah, you should probably make a comment about your the latest tool you just made your video on that. I can't even remember what the heck you called it. The fifth axis.
Yeah, well, we can get buried in that pretty good, but most CNC machines, you know, work back, forth, side, side, up, down, and so if you put one rotary axis on it, that's called a fourth axis. And then I'd been experimenting over several months with a fifth axis, so I can tilt my spindle. I decided in the end that was the best way to do it. So if I get a vase shape that's the usual wave, bulb in the bottom and then narrow and then widening for the neck, my CNC can follow that. Plus, it can keep the bit perpendicular to the surface or normal to the surface as it goes around, and follow it all the way along. So I thought it would be, you know, on that little channel I have, Bert, I thought, you know, there's a very small group of people that are interested in such things. So I put it on there, the little experiments I'm doing.
So these are on your own YouTube channel, is that right?
Yeah, I made one to kind of follow how the progress that I made in doing this. It's called Embellished Turnings. And you know, it's a bit, well, using a computer to do this kind of stuff is probably even more rarefied than using something like an MDF lathe, which is what Rich Colvin does. But I just skipped over the whole calculation thing and all that, went right to Bill's program, and away we go. But with my CNC machine, I can put any design. You know, if I find a design on the internet, I can cut that into the side of a bowl or something in appropriate file formats, SVG or DXF. But the real fun is using Bill Ooms' program. It's just unbelievable.
And that's Bill Ooms, OOMS, is how he
Yes,
spells
sir.
it.
Yeah, yeah. He's made some really, really beautiful stuff. He has a small YouTube channel. He talks about a few things, and he used to make very snappy ornamental eggs with silver inlays and all kinds of stuff. But he's largely retired now.
I remember years ago he created a free program for basic bowl or shape design that was real interesting. I can't remember what software or how he did it, but he programmed that thing, and it was just super simple to just get a basic two-dimensional shape.
Yeah, the current program, well, current as of when he, you know, maybe 6 years ago he quit modifying it. You can cut the shape. You can follow the curve that you've designed in his program, and you can cut that shape in with a fly cutter, or you can turn it reasonably close and then finish dimensioning it in his program exactly to what you've designed. And that's kind of fun to use. I'm finally getting around to using that more. And there's threading, of course, as part of the program. It's really something. Initially, it didn't get a whole lot of traction when he put it out, because he put it out for Macintoshes, and you know, a lot of people don't have Macs. It's the world of Windows, really. So with the help of a friend of mine, we got that ported over to Windows. So that's freely available on GitHub. You just search for Corn Lathe, and Corn Lathe is just what it sounds like: CORNLATHE. If you search Corn Lathe on GitHub, which is GITHUB, then you can find his original corn lathe, and then you can find corn lathe for windows.
Well, could you put some of all that in the chat so that anybody who's hot for it can download that?
Sure.
Appreciate it. And also the link to your own channel. I want to look at your new video. I can
Okay,
usually
sir.
find it, but yeah. Other questions for Jeff? So watch the chat for that, for those links. Thank you very much. It's always great to hear from you and to see that kind of work. It blows me away. I've always been fascinated by it. I doubt I'll ever do it. Oh, Bowman, what do you want to show us today? You got short sheeted at the meeting on Tuesday, so you got the floor.
No problem. I owe Kathy a credit for inspiring me to work on pizza cutter handles. And in the process, I had some fun, and I'm going to show you as soon as I find the right thing to share. These guys always drive me crazy. There is the handles I created. I do a lot of messing around with epoxy, and I have barrels full of ends of all kinds of woods laying in my shop, and I just throw them in cans and stuff. And so I had fun, and these were Christmas gifts. And actually, the friend down the street, who both he and his wife are trained chefs, said, "Oh, we used your pizza cutter to slice potatoes last night." These are PSI's Pro ones, so they're like a big 4-inch cutter. And I use, let me see which direction I need to go with this carrot. I use supports from, what is it, woodturners.com. I forget the guy's name. He actually prints them on a 3D printer. And I'll warn you ahead of time, if you buy Niles, they won't fit because Niles has a different shape. They have to have a certain notch. So he'll ask you which one you're using. So I ordered them from him. And he has been a really good guy and very responsive. So I had fun making them, and I had a very good response. People want to buy them. So I said, okay, I have resolved how I'm making the molds, but the little wood wants to just pop up, and it's just a pain in the butt. And you're trying to pour. So I designed this little jig thing. The bottom holds that, and this top is rubber feet on a 5/8 inch dowel, which friction fits, and you just push it down. I have one with well, now the piece of wood in already.
Wait a minute. What's the problem we're solving here? The wood floats up in the epoxy, so you got to push it down?
Oh, yeah. Either you glue it to the bottom or something, but when you're making narrow stuff like this, it's a real problem. It floats quickly.
I guess my question is, why are you bothering with the epoxy? Why don't you just use wood?
Oh, because I love the epoxy mixed with the wood.
Okay.
Back here, let me go back a second, John. No, let me go forward.
Singers got to sing and dancers got to dance,
right? You're right.
Yeah.
I'll go back to them to talk about that. These are another alternative. I mentioned this before. I fill the little yogurt things with wood and pour epoxy, and these are not long enough. You need like 4, 4.5, or 5 inches, depends on what your preference is and how big a hand you're making it for pizza cutter handles. So these I just sand both ends, and I use 5-minute epoxy, and I stick them together, and they therefore become one big piece that's big enough for me to turn. Yeah, I just am fascinated with the plastic wood thing. It's there's something random about it that it just gets my attention.
You saw Henry Fisher's work on Tuesday night. I mean, that's amazing of epoxy wood combos that guy's putting together.
Yeah, he's yeah, he's into epoxy too. Yeah.
So
No,
in these
here,
cutters, in these five, you're showing 5 cutters here.
right.
Point to the epoxy, or somehow tell us which is wood, where's the wood and where's the epoxy, because I'm not quite
Okay,
following.
I'm gonna start on the right. If you
Okay.
see my arrow,
Yeah.
right here is epoxy.
Okay.
And this one on the bottom also is epoxy on the other side. This is epoxy, the second one, this epoxy with black mica powder in it. Cherry up here. This one and this one and the second to last one were all made with the yogurt cans, yogurt
So
containers.
this style of cutter now, is there a threaded insert in that handle? Can you screw the cutter
Yes.
in and out for cleaning and
Yes.
things? Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
And what's the
I
the stud at the other end? Is that connected to anything, or is that purely decorative?
that is purely decorative.
Okay.
And matter of fact, up in the end, I messed up on a handle or something. I didn't have one of those ends, and they don't sell you the pieces parts. You got to buy the kit. So I made a Purple Heart one on the very left one and put it in the end just for fun. No, those are purely decorative. They only go like 3/4 of an inch deep. Yeah, these thread in. I use I glue in. There's a Niles and these folks use different methods. Some of them thread in. This one is a brass or metal. This was metal. I got some brass ones because they won't corrode, but I epoxy them in. Epoxy seems to work the best. I've used 5-minute epoxy. I'm sorry, CA glue works the best. I've used 5-minute epoxy, but if you turn it in too tight, sometimes it just pulls right out of the handle. So, yeah, so John, the black over here on the third one, that's epoxy. I put pure black on. I really made that black. Some of them I leave clear, and then the very end one is a pure black one again. The challenge is I like to put a bead up here, and on the middle one you can see a little bit of epoxy on the edge, and the one way over in the left a little bit epoxy. The bead, you have to be very careful with the bead cutter because it can chip the epoxy rather than cut it nicely like wood. So I just having fun with it, and I was kind of proud of my ingenuity, I thought, for for rigging a way to hold the wood down in, and yet you can pour it and everything. It's messy. It's a messy process. So, but I'm enjoying it. The reason I've gone to a smaller, I have an 1.5 inch. I started out at 2, but it's way too much epoxy to turn down. The widest part of the handle of the design I use is like 1.25 inches, about inch, maybe a little more, 1.25 inches. So I didn't want as much to turn down. So this time I poured them in a 1.5 inch PVC pipe, which has been cut in half, and then I put silicone in when I put them back together. So.
Well, I make a lot of handles for stuff, and I've been finding that I make them bigger than I ought to. When I draw stuff, it always comes out bigger, and when I make stuff, it always comes out bigger. And I'm learning that 1.5 inches is too big. 1.25 inches, even 1.125 inches is a better size for handles that people can get their hands around. I look at the little hands that some of the women in my family have, and they're the ones who are using these tools I'm making. So this Christmas, I thinned them all down 1/8 of an inch, and I got better looking and better feeling handles by not give up the 1.5 inches. It's too big.
Yeah, everybody, a lot of people out there like to make decorative handles for pizza cutter. I go, no, you're using it. So
Yeah,
I
it's too
figured out a design that fits my hand nice. And then the people I gave it to said, man, those are nice handles. And I
Yeah.
think, John, it's 1.25 inches at the back end and about 1 1/16 in the middle or so. I forget. But
Yeah.
you're right. There's a certain size that works. Now I'm using I don't have a huge man's hand, but I have not a lady-sized hand either. So
We've often seen the classic British tool handle. You know, we have it on tools, and it's a teardrop shaped. It's a ball at the end. It gets a little narrow neck, and then there's a bead or 2 or 3 that you can get your thumb against. And that is a very effective handle that's been evolved
Yeah.
over hundreds of years in workshops. For small tools, it just works.
Yep, and that's what I use. So yeah, it's been a fun thing, and I poured those new handles last night, so now I got to wait till Saturday night till I can get them out and turn them. But yeah, great
Mike's
fun.
holding
I had fun with it. So
Mike's holding one up here. I'm going to spotlight him so we can have a look at it.
And
Yep, that's it right there. That's your classic British tool handle. Yep. You're
I
muted. You're still muted.
I replaced the large Sorby handles for some thread chasers. They were just way too big, and I bought a Crown thread chaser, and this was just a perfect handle. And so I've been using this for all my small tools. This shape.
I've been making that something very similar to that for my small tools as well. And what's the maximum diameter on that?
I'd almost have to pull a storyboard out. Let me measure. It's probably an inch and a quarter, I'm guessing.
I think it's pretty close to an inch and a quarter, maybe a little under.
1 3/8.
1 3/8. Okay, that's a little bigger than an inch and a quarter. Yeah.
You know, John, I made one that was really small. That is about an 1/8 inch smaller than the original one, which I loved, and it was really a different experience. The same shape, but an 1/8 inch smaller all the way around. And I go,
See,
I know you're using metal around the edge. Well, I forget what you call that, but on your a ferrule on the tip. But I don't. So
I just find the whole problem of getting the right size handle for a tool, both for kitchenware as well as workshop tools, to be much more subtle than I used to think. I thought it was, you just jam a piece of wood on there and you're fine. But a good handle makes a lot of difference in how well a tool works, is what I'm discovering. And there's a lot of little wee stuff to think about in that. Here comes Mike with some more. I'm going to put the spotlight back on him.
Yeah, so this is the main size, I think. A lot of times when you're choking up, this one is a little over 1 1/4. This one is closer to 1 3/8, and this one is closer to a little over 1 1/4. But yeah, sometimes small is good, and I think once you find a shape you like, make a storyboard to make it easy to replicate, especially if you go to a workshop and you're having several people make handles for tool making session. The storyboard really helps a new turner develop the size and shape and the widths. And I can reach over here and get a couple of samples of handle storyboards.
Now, what we got here also is a comment from Mike Brazo pointing out what I've also learned: as you get older and you get more arthritic in your hands, a bigger handle is better. So 1 1/4 inch, 1 3/8.
Yeah.
Yep. Very useful. Yeah.
You know, Mike, you're a little more systematic than I am. When I need a handle, I go over to the scrap bin and I go, this piece looks about right. It'll turn. So my handles vary. They really in length. So.
Singers got to sing, dancers got to dance.
I do notice that my granddaughters, who are all young women, and my daughters-in-law all have smaller hands than I do, and they like handles that top out about 1 1/8 or under, even 1 inch. And I think it's an interesting study to get on top of, and I'm seeing a lot of comments about this too. Yeah, Mike Max says he's replaced factory handles on skews and spindle gouges with shorter handles. I've been doing that. And Jeff says that golf clubs, same as Mike Brazo says, make them a little bit bigger. Yep.
I had a forget what chisel was. I had it fall out of. It was one of my scrapers fall out of its handle. I go.
Trying to make a new handle.
So, no, I just took CA glue and slammed it back in the same joint.
I find epoxy holds tools into handles better than CA glue. CA glue tends to shatter and epoxy doesn't.
Yeah, I think you may be right. It takes longer. Well, not 5 minutes, but it takes longer if you use regular epoxy. So.
Yeah.
You have a point about those handles, Jim. It's Doug here. I actually had a handle from a scraper that I got from my dad, and it had a small knot in it. And I had a catch, and the whole damn handle broke. Everything else. So another thing to think about when you're making the handles, make sure you've got a really good pure piece of wood and not just any piece off the scrap pile.
Yes, for tool handles, perfect wood is essential, or perfect epoxy, whatever you're liking.
It's the only wood that's perfect in my shop. What goes in the handles, the rest of it has knots and cracks.
Anybody else?
I got a question. It could be a club challenge sometime. I have been knocking myself out trying to turn yo-yos that are balanced and work right. They got to be perfectly balanced and shaped and everything. I'm not having much luck. If I ever get it done, I will. But
I got a request from a grandson to do that, so we're gonna have to figure that out too. So I'll talk to you about what you've learned.
I got a kit from PSI to do it, and I did have success with their top. I used their pull string top kit, and boy, that thing! I have a video of it sailing across my shop floor. So
I got there is. I remember planting a piece in wood turning fundamentals from the AAW on how to make a balanced yo-yo, and it's out there somewhere probably in 2019 or 20 archive. So I'm going to look that up and see what that tells me as well. But yeah, getting it perfectly balanced and it perfect wood turned symmetrically. How do we do that? I don't know. I have to figure it out.
I poured brass chippings in it because I wanted to make it real fancy. Well, that just threw the balance off like crazy. Even if I had brass on both sides, it just wouldn't balance. So
I'm thinking if you use
a jig.
What?
This is John. I have a question on that jig.
Yeah.
For pouring. It looks like those wood stoppers, they must become part of the epoxy. How do you get that out?
I'm going to find out. I'll tell you what I did. I go in
Does
and
that black top come off to get it out of the jig?
It slides up. It slides up. The one of them got a little epoxy on it, so I rotate it occasionally just to make sure it doesn't lock in. I may have to saw it up. I don't know.
You could put a piece of paper in there.
Oh, the epoxy will soak great.
Yeah, doesn't do any good. Okay. Yeah, yeah.
But I'm a little interested. I may have to change the design, but so.
Wax paper,
John,
Jim.
you just pull them up. They just pull up.
Let's put some saran wrap on it.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, John, you're talking. Why don't you keep talking? You got your hand up.
Oh, okay. Well, I have more of a question or a discussion than anything to show. In the AAW, there's always an advertisement in the back for precision inlay repair system, which is making inlays in your wood, like to repair a crack or something like that. And I don't know, how do you route in something that's round for a specific shape? Has anybody done that? I mean, this is the ad. Let me see. This one here.
Okay.
Has anybody done anything like that? How do you do it? Does anybody have any experience making inlays in cracks in wood and putting, like a herring? That's my question. It's just kind of a point of discussion.
If you're just trying to make a perfectly circular inlay, then purchase if you have a Forstner bit to create your hole, and then a plug cutter the identical size of your Forstner bit, and they just fit like a glove.
Okay. That's a round one, but how about, I mean, these things are using a router. That's a great idea. I never thought of using the plug cutter, and that's a real nice idea. I like that. But
yeah.
Anybody have experience doing it with a router?
Hey, John, you can do that with it. You get a temp. If you go to their website, you get a template, and you can get the cutter, and you can get the whole works.
Big Island Engraving over in Hawaii, they sell them, and they have a good YouTube on their site of how to do it.
Okay.
Yeah, John, there's the router
will have a small bit in the center, and then it will have a bushing with a ring that goes on it.
Right.
And what you do is you take the ring off, you carve out the template, then you put the ring back on, and you carve out the inlay, which now will be as much larger than the size of the router bit. Okay? And then it will fit exactly into the opening that you've routed.
That,
All right.
yes.
Go to their
Slab-
website, John.
Yeah,
They got a
I would
video.
do that.
We got to see
I would do
pictures.
that.
Yeah, we got to see pictures. I know there are ways to do it. I'm going to rig up an old lathe with a platform on it so I can route into the turnings. But I'm not interested in inlays. I'm interested in making slots for mortises and joinery. So it's another aspect of the problem.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, that's a start anyway.
Slab Stitchers right in Christiana. They're online at Slab Stitchers. They have all that stuff. They make a lot of these bow tie stuff. Very decorative. But the reason I mention is they have the whole kit of what Randy was referring to, of drill bits and the guides, because they use a plexiglass jig that you put on top. And that's like at Christmas, I made hors d'oeuvres platters, and I had a route down so there was something for bowls to sit in and all that. And I just made my own jig on a bandsaw with a real thin blade, and then sanded it on my spindle sander and used that as the guide. So.
Okay, Janet, what were you? Haven't heard from you in a while. How are you?
I'm good, John. Thank you. Just wanted to give a little information on the inlay, having done quite a bit of it over the years. In furniture, I've sort of applied a lot of that tool use and knowledge of doing inlay on furniture to bowls. And tiny bit of shameless self-promotion. April 2017, American Woodturner, inlay techniques for woodturners by me.
Okay.
And there's a lot of what you're talking about is very familiar to me, and so trying to find the page here. There's a lot about making circular cuts and plugs for that, straight cuts and so on and so on, and something that I love doing and have a bit of experience in. So
we should look up Janet Collins in the AAW index and find your article.
April 2017.
April 17. Okay.
And
so, do they have them online? Can we see them online? I don't have them.
The whole archive is available online. It's on the AAW website. You have to be an AAW member to get at it, but it's all there.
Yep.
And there's also an article that John Kelsey wrote too about me.
About you. Yeah, there's we did a profile years and years ago. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
That's it.
Randy. Okay, Randy. Going to tell us about the farm show, I bet.
Yep, the farm show is coming on. Tomorrow, we are going over to the farm show complex and set up our wood turning demonstration area. We have lathes and cameras and televisions and tables and all kinds of stuff. I have one shield, and Tim Starhopper has the other shield from our club. And we'll be setting that up starting about 9 o'clock. Now, for those who are in the area, the farm show opens, the food court opens at noon, and there is free parking. So come by, grab some great food, and the milkshakes are wonderful. So if anybody's coming to the farm show, our wood turning area is in the main exhibition hall. If you go in the main doors from the outside, the butter sculptor will be right in front of you. turn to the left, go down about 2 aisles, turn to the right, and it's part of the Agriculture Department hardwood exhibit. And just look for the crowds. Whenever there are people there wood turning, there will be 20 or 30 people standing there watching.
Now, where is the farm show?
It's here in Harrisburg.
At what's the name of the facility?
It's the Pennsylvania Farm Show Complex.
Okay.
Just
and
a
you have
PA Farm Show.
Are you full up with demonstrators?
We are not. We have a couple of openings yet. We just normally put up a sign that says, "Sorry, the woodturners are out gathering more wood."
Well, do you want more volunteers?
Yeah, but it's a little too late to do that.
Also?
Well, the demonstrators actually get parking passes. The admittance is free, but the parking is, I think, $15 this year. So we do have parking passes, and they get mailed out like about 2 weeks before the farm show opens.
But still,
So
if somebody came
if somebody
along,
wants to, they can email me. I'll put my email address in the chat.
put the time slots that are available too. I'm asking personally. I was thinking I might like to do that, but I don't know what time slots might work.
We have an actual, I'll tell you what, John, I'll send you a link. We do have the spreadsheet for the signups on Google, but you can edit and add your name if you see an empty spot.
Okay.
We have two slots a day and 2 people for each slot. So we have one that starts at 9, runs to 2:30. We have another one that starts at 2:30, runs till 8.
And do you have to be a Susquehanna member to do this?
No.
Okay.
You should be an AAW member.
Okay.
And that's just for the insurance.
Yep.
The other thing I want to mention is I attended the Worldwide Woodturners Zoom meeting last night, and I've always been told that a lathe makes round things. Well, this demonstrator named Steve from Ireland took a round branch and made a cube on the lathe, which I found intriguing. So if you want to visit their channel, in about a week they'll have the video up. And then what he did was, still on the lathe using nothing but lathe turning tools, he made a square within a square, a cube within a cube, excuse me. It was quite long, but it was very, very interesting. And
that's a good demo. Very much worth looking up. I've seen demos like that. So,
but he made this cube. Pardon?
Randy, you forgot to mention the best food at the farm show, the breaded mushrooms.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, I never forget the breaded mushrooms.
It's always made me drive the 2 hours to be up there for them, I'll tell you.
And they have sometime, and of course, funnel cake. And they even have fried butter.
You're talking
just look at it and your arteries harden.
You're talking to a bunch of people that doesn't want to have that butter at our age, you know, so.
So that's it for me.
Okay. Anybody else? We're right up on the hour, but there's a minute here if somebody wants to pop something at us.
I just wanted to say that they have farm stuff at the farm show as well, not just wood turning and food.
Well, I'm going to pull a plug on this. Happy New Year, everybody. We'll see you all next week.
Yeah.
Take care.
Happy New Year to all.
Happy New Year, everyone.
Thanks, John.
Yeah, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Hello,
Take care, everybody.
See you next week.
Okay.
Have a
Thank you all.
healthy New Year.
Wood shop. Thank God for wood.